Hello and welcome to day 2 here at Pro Tour Amonkhet. Maria Bartholdi here at the news desk alongside Ian Duke. And Ian, we saw some amazing magic yesterday.
Yeah, it was a fantastic day. I had the pleasure of being in the booth for the limited rounds. Those were awesome. We got to see some really cool stuff happening. Drake Haven going off, all kinds of stuff, embalming, cartouches, trials, exertion all over the place. A lot of aggression, but we actually ended up seeing the control decks taking down the 3 feature matches, which was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, we had an 11-4 Enigma Drake, no big deal.
Yeah, that was awesome, with insult to injury as well, doubling it up, so that was pretty cool.
So moving ahead into day 2, what are you hoping to see today?
More awesome limited rounds for sure. Really excited for this morning. There was a lot of debate amongst the players coming in about, was the limited format really fast? Do I want to go in on the red decks? But then again, we saw people kind of next leveling that, finding ways to fight against those aggressive decks. Cartouche of Ambition was a key card, Festering Mummy, and so on and so forth. So really want to see if people can kind of next level that Magic Online metagame that we've seen so far. And then the standard rounds have also been fantastic. We've seen some really cool stuff there, some awesome zombies decks focusing on bridging together the zombies from Shadows over Innistrad with those from Amonkhet. We saw some pretty cool Aetherworks Marvel action, a bunch of Ulamogs hitting the battlefield.
Yeah, we saw 6 cast in a single game.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Round 8 from yesterday, if you didn't get a chance to see it, that was an awesome, awesome match. We saw Black-Green Sacrifice with Cryptolith Rites, and most importantly, in my mind, we saw Mardu Vehicles losing a lot, so I was cheering for that.
Do you have a pet deck of the ones that we saw yesterday in Standard?
Oh man, tough to say. I think I really liked Paul Cheon's blue-red control deck. I had the pleasure of doing a deck tech with him, and that's just right up my alley as a traditional control player, so if that's your thing, definitely check it out.
And of course, our team series is underway as the battle to become the #1 team rages on. Our own Rich Hagan is over at our video wall to tell us more about that.
Thanks, Maria. Yes, let's talk teams. So here's the leaderboard. Genesis up the top. What a fantastic day they had. Now, number of players in top 8 contention. That's 4 losses. We say you're still in contention. Some people on 4 losses won't make it in, but the 5th loss is over. So the full team of Genesis in contention. Martin Muller's the best of them at 7-1. Yasuoka leads the way for Team Musashi. They had a fantastic day, all 6 of them still in the hunt. Now, if you look at Team Opportunity, they've got 5 left. Pierre Dajon, one of the 2 8-0 players. Great result for Massdrop West. They were in the middle of the pack coming into this event. Team Mutiny, though, they've really turned the ship around. Josh Cho, Jerry Thompson, Sam Black, Matt Severa amongst that group. They were in like 29th place coming in. So they're probably not going to be able to catch up all the way to the actual team series final, but a great showing on day 1. MTG Mint Card, you see they've got 5 players left. That is all 5 because Nam Sung-wook wasn't qualified for this event. Part of their narrative, they were coming in joint first place. If they can get to the top 4 by the end of this weekend, that will re-qualify Nam Sung-wook. All 6 players on the top 4 teams will come back for Pro Tour Kyoto. Then you've got Team Eureka. This is very big because they've got 3 horses in the race, if you like, for top 8. Gershenson, Dickman and Tobias all at 6-2. Replicate that today. 6-2 becomes 12-4, right on the verge of contention. I want to take you a little bit further down now if we can. That's the top 8 teams. Let's look at 9 to 16 if we can, because a couple of big teams here. First of all, Lingering Souls. They were the big surprise last time around, and Chris Fennell is the other 8-0 player. If you can get someone into the top 8, that is a huge deal. Remember, 30 points to the champion. That's what Dex Third accumulated through Lucas Escobar 2 last time. And finally, I want to talk about face-to-face games. They were in 3rd place coming into the event. Jacob Wilson leads the way, 5 of them still in contention. He's at 6-2. You see the rest of the top half there. Decent performance by Last Samurai, still got 4 players in contention. And watch out for Chris Calcano. MTG Bent Card, they've only got 3 players left in the race for top 8, but Calcano's well positioned at 7-1. So Maria, that's the state of the team series as we head into day 2.
Thanks so much, Rich. Well, Ian, it's time for Limited. We're going to see some draft. I'm so excited. We've got an amazing feature pod. But I want to know, we're so lucky to have you here as a member of R&D. What were you trying to make work in this draft environment?
Well, as always, we try to make a variety of different strategies and playstyles work and have each of the different color pairs feel unique. That said, every set comes with its own mechanics, and Amonkhet in particular had some mechanics that lent itself toward being pretty aggressive. You know, Exert, for example, is all about attacking, right? So we wanted to counterbalance that and make sure that there was, you know, while Exert provided a good inevitability to the games, made sure that they would end eventually by one player or the other attacking, that there was good counterplay there. So, and the -1/-1 counters are something that we leaned on a lot there, you know, to make sure you could have effective answers to small creatures, defend yourself in the early game, and do some sweet things with cycling and embalm.
We saw Chris Calcano go 6-0, or 3-0, sorry, with a deck with 6 Slither Blades in it yesterday.
Yeah, that really like knocked my socks off there. Slither Blade was not a card I had on my radar as, you know, something that would show up a lot at the Pro Tour. So pretty cool to see. People are definitely innovating on that front.
Do you think, just speaking strictly strategy-wise, that if it were you down there in that draft pod, you would try and go aggressive like a lot of the teams are interested in doing, or would you try and play something that can beat an aggro deck?
I think my baseline strategy would be to try to be aggressive. You know, that's definitely what I was finding toward the end of our internal drafts, is that I wanted to be primarily attacking if I could. That said, you know, the cards don't always line up for you, and your seat doesn't always line up to be an aggressive deck. And in that case, I think you also want to be prepared to be on the board early and make sure that you have creatures there to defend, to block, and that you're actively trying to slow down the game and kind of stall off those aggressive decks.
Well, like I said at the beginning, we've got an amazing feature pod to watch here, and Rich Hagan's going to give us a preview of that right now.
Certainly am, Maria. So welcome back to the wall. The players are sort of just over there behind me as they gear up for this Day 2 draft. Remember, you play only the players within your table. You can't play anyone else in the building. So you know when you sit down, you've got 7 potential opponents. So why don't we head down to the area. There you see the 8-0 Chris Fennell. He's a limited master, terrific player, born of the gods, top 8. And as we pan to the right, you see that's Christian Calcano there. 7 Grand Prix top 8s, 2 Grand Prix titles, 7-1 overnight. For the calculator, and he is really in great shape. Now, Pierre Dajon had a really incredible match at the end of yesterday. Team O, that's Team O for Opportunity, and he had his second Pro Tour top 8 at PT Kaladesh. So he's gearing up, the other 8-0 player, next to Hall of Famer Eric Froelich from Team Channel Fireball Ice, 4 Pro Tour top 8s, super serious, great game face from Efro, and he is gearing up for yet another feature draft. Next to him, looking uncharacteristically serious, is Gerard Fabiano. He, as long ago as 2002, had a Pro Tour top 8 in teams, 300 lifetime pro points for Gerard Fabiano. So that's Calcano and Dajon and Froelich and Fabiano and Fennell. Now, how about this man? Shota Yasuoka, the Hall of Famer from Team Masashi, part of the reason they're at the front of the pack. 4 Pro Tour top 8s for him. And then one of the big surprise packages, there's Oliver Ox from Australia, go Team Brisbane, as it were, the Grand Prix Brisbane champion, really making the most of his 12th Pro Tour start. And he's passing to someone with a lot of experience, but not a lot of success. This is Kazuaki Fujimura, 3 Grand Prix top 8s, 2 of them in the last 12 months. So he's really upped his game, playing in his 13th Pro Tour here, 51% win rate. That is the table. There aren't enough good cards to go around 8 players that good. Where do they fall? We're about to find out. Maria, back to you.
Thanks so much, Rich. Well, Ian, it sounds like the players are ready and we are ready. So let's head down to the feature match area here for Day 2 at Pro Tour Amonkhet.
Hello, welcome to the booth here at Pro Tour Amonkhet. I'm Brian David Marshall. It is my pleasure to be alongside Hall of Famer Luis Scott Vargas, and we are going to watch an 8-0 drafter here to start Day 2 of the Pro Tour. We're going to watch Chris Fennell.
Yeah, Chris is a very experienced limited player from Florida, well known for a lot of drafting, both in and out of tournaments, and it's going to be interesting to see what Chris goes.
Yeah, I mean, and Chris is not one of those players who's really has a lot of affection for the aggro decks that people have been talking about. He has a lot of affection of going over the top of those. So let's see what happens. Let's go down to the floor and watch Chris Fennell draft to defend his 8-0 record. Hello and welcome to the first draft here on Day 2 of Pro Tour Amonkhet, the only draft actually. And we're going to be watching Chris Fennell. He is an 8-0 drafter, 8-0 player from yesterday. And there you get a look at him, a member of Team Lingering Souls, the Gator Mage, as he's known. And they are waiting to pick up their pack and see what awaits them. Maybe waiting for the draft viewer team to slide into place to record all of these picks. There you see all the personnel stepping in behind them. And Chris is scrolling through his first pack. And what do we see?
So Chris has a decent amount of options. Prepare to Fight, being the rare, is one of the most powerful cards. And this pack's kind of bare, especially if you don't like aggro. If
you don't like a Nefcrop Entangler?
Yeah, Nefcrop Entangler would be the only other card that I think most players would be satisfied first picking. But Prepare to Fight is very strong, especially if you expect to play against aggressive decks. Giving a creature +2/+2 lifelink, winning a combat, and getting 4 or 5 life. And if you have enough mana to then fight at the same turn, you get a ton more life.
Right. Talking to Chris before the draft, his goal is to come out of this first pack with like 7 cards, 8 cards, maybe in one color, and be open for a card like Prepare to Fight if he opened it later in the draft. So curious to see how he plays with a 2-color card early on.
Yeah, one of the disadvantages, of course, of Prepare to Fight is it's not really a 2-color card in the sense that you can just put Prepare in your deck and it is a good card. This card's very playable in mono white, but it is certainly much, much stronger in white green.
Cartouche of Strength brought up to the front. The Cartouches have played a big role in this tournament and in this format, and this might be one of the better ones here.
Yeah, Cartouche of Strength looks like a great pickup here. Decimator Beetle is a powerful card, but given that you started with a white-green card, just taking the mono-green powerful card seems like it is more likely you're going to get to put both in your deck. Whereas if you take the Decimator Beetle, you're unlikely to play your first 2 picks without splashing.
All right. Moves ahead to pick 3 here. Let's look at the cards. And he's got Saul right up there in the front.
Weaver of Currents is one of the signpost cards. It's what you want in the blue-green ramp deck, and getting a 1/3 pick, that is not an unreasonable place to take it, especially since the 2 drafters to his right have clearly not elected to go into green-blue. But looks like Chris would rather take Pull from Tomorrow.
Yeah, another blue card. But and this is exactly what he had talked about before the draft. He's like, well, I'm going to see what the people, downstream from me want to do in this draft, and I'll respond to that. Cartouche of Knowledge quickly pulled up to the top. There's a Cartouche of Solidarity in there too, a card that, and then Javelineer, Warfire Javelineer. So he's trying to figure out what this all means.
I really like where this is going because we're going to end up with something sweet here based on the first couple picks. Warfire Javelineer is great in the red-blue deck. It's one of the best cards, and is very good with Pull from Tomorrow. Cartouche of Knowledge fits quite well into blue-green, and with Cartouche of Strength and Cartouche of Knowledge and Pull from Tomorrow, Chris could be leaning towards blue-green.
Well, and there's another Weaver of Currents.
Right. I think he's going to be hard-pressed to not just take Weaver of Currents now. It fits so well with all the cards he already has. And maybe Prepare to Fight doesn't get in the deck, but either way, having Pull from Tomorrow, Weaver of Currents, and a couple Cartouches is a great start.
Where do you? What's the payoff for this blue-green deck? Where does the Weaver lead you?
Pull from Tomorrow is a great payoff. If you can cast a Pull for 4 or 5, you're probably going to win that game, assuming you're not too far behind. And Chris also is going to look to pick up some more expensive creatures like a Colossopede or Greater Sandworm.
So does a card like, Floodwaters ever make it into a deck like this?
Yeah, Floodwaters can be playable here. It's not exciting. Hieroglyphic Illumination is a little faster because it's easier to cycle, and then it helps you hit your land drops when you cast it. It's the kind of card that helps you get up to 6-7 mana a lot more efficiently.
We even saw that card get into Constructed yesterday.
Yeah, it's good in decks with Torrential Gearhulks and whatnot.
There's another Warfire Javelineer, another Hieroglyphic Illumination.
And this is brutal because had Chris picked the first Warfire Javelineer, he would have been in insane shape to move into red-blue because, again, Javelineer is one of the best cards in red-blue. But at this point, because of the Weaver and the green Cartouche, Chris might feel like he's indebted, to blue-green and kind of locked in there.
Take Seeker of Insight, a card that I think has gone up for people over the course of these few weeks from maybe it's okay to being pretty good. I don't know how good it is in blue-green, though.
The part of the reason that Seeker has gotten a lot better is that if people are trying to attack you with 2/1s, then Seeker does a little bit of work. Unfortunately, a lot of the Exert creatures go over the top, and like Slither Blade is unblockable, but it's still a relevant early play. And in a deck with a bunch of spells, it can help you loot a few times.
See an even Wind Guide going into Chris Fennell's cards there.
And Chris could be leaning towards 3 colors. It was also just the most powerful card in the pack. There's no real downside to picking it out of that pack, even if you don't end up taking it or playing it.
Doesn't want the Ancient Crab. I couldn't quite see what card he took there. It looks like it was an Oashra Cultivator.
Which could help him lean towards a 3-color deck, like Splashing, Prepare to Fight. That card is the kind of card that's good to splash. Same with the Even Wind Guide.
Shed Weakness over Pouncing Cheetah.
Yeah, neither card I would expect Chris to be particularly happy about playing.
Then Impeccable Timing and Spidery Grasp.
One reason to take Impeccable Timing here is that Chris has the potential to move into just straight blue-white. Picking up multiple copies of Impeccable Timing, that card is a combo with Pull from Tomorrow. It seems kind of weird to say that, but casting Impeccable Timings on like turns 2 and 3, and then casting a Pull from Tomorrow on turn 6 when your life total's still pretty high, but that's a way to win a game of Magic.
Ends up with Hazoret's Monument there. And how do you think he's feeling here? And then a Kefnet's Monument. How do you think he's feeling here at the end of Pack 1?
I think that some amount of him has regret that he did not take Warfire Javelier over Cartouche of Knowledge, because then the second Warfire Javelier could have led to a really good red-blue deck. But I certainly don't think that was something that he would necessarily even do differently. That's just how the packs ended up. Right. I like the start for blue-green. It's unfortunate that he had to pass Weaver of Currents for Pull from Tomorrow, because you don't want anyone on your left going blue-green. But Chris has a really good start for blue-green, or he has the really good outs to be blue-white. Having the Even Wind Guide and the 2 Impeccable Timings versus Weaver and Cartouche.
Right, and Prepare to Fight is a card he can still play on the front half if he's blue-white.
It's better to have that card in a blue-white deck as opposed to just being blue-green and not being able to play it. So, yeah, it's slightly better there. So I think where Chris goes is going to be heavily influenced by what cards he opens in Pack 2, because he's going to be base blue, whether he picks up white cards or green cards. I guess he does technically have outs to go white-green, but I think that is less likely than playing base blue plus one of the other 2 colors.
I'm pretty sure he's not very happy with where he's at based on his description of what his first pack should look like. It should look like 7 cards of one color, and then maybe 1 or 2 cards playable in 2 other colors that he could slide around on.
Yeah, it's just, I think that he is slightly more open than he might look, being 3 colors, but I think it's just going to really depend on where he gets pointed. Like, for example, here, Compulsory Rest just stands out as the best card. So, in a lot of ways, I mean, he could take Watchful Naga, but it's just so much worse than Compulsory Rest, especially in a controlling deck.
And the cruel reality is he can't play his rare from this pack.
Unfortunately not, which is a powerful card if you can accelerate it out.
Oh, but you know what? He's got Cruel Reality right to the front of the pack here. But now it's battling with an Initiate's Companion for his attention.
Initiate's Companion does block reasonably well. You know, it can keep, like, Nefcrop and Tanglers back. So taking Initiate's Companion over Compulsory Rest signifies that Chris is very interested in going green. So he did not look at himself as being open to being blue-white very much there. He took a card which I think is significantly worse than Compulsory Rest in order to solidify into green.
Greater Sandworm, Angler Drake.
Oh, this is a great pickup.
And a green-white land, but he's going to take that Angler Drake.
Oh, Angler Drake is a windmill slam. The card is amazing, and he's got Weaver of Currents.
Right, he can play it on turn 4.
Yeah, he's looking to pick up Naga Vitalist, for example. He'd much rather have Naga Vitalist in his deck than Initiate's Companion. And if you can accelerate out Angler Drake, it's great. If you can also tap 6 mana and just cast it on turn 6, it's also great. Chris looking very happy about the current state of affairs. But that pack had a fair amount of cards Chris would be interested in. He could, Wheeling Scattered Groves, picking up Greater Sandworm. These are all cards that might come back.
I love Greater Sandworm in a deck like this. There's another Seeker of Insight. There's another Cartouche of Strength. And that's a quick decision there for Chris Fennell.
And it has seemed like it has worked out well to stay green here. So I think Chris is locked in a blue-green with the potential to splash Even Wind Guide and Prepare to Fight. But if he doesn't pick up any fixing, just going to be straight blue-green and see how that goes.
And then just looking for the stray Colossopede or Greater Sandworm that comes along at some point in the draft. He had to pass one earlier, but, no question he's taking Angler Drake over that.
Yeah, Chris certainly is looking for larger creatures now that he has the two copies of Cartouche of Strength.
There's the Spring to Mind is a card that might help his splash if he wants to do that third color. So does Gifts of Paradise. That's a card that we've seen a lot of people play, but Spring to Mind's really nice, especially in a green-blue deck where you actually can, in the later turns, maybe just find a window to draw 2 cards essentially for free from your graveyard.
Yeah, casting Spring so you can cast a turn 4 Colossopede and then later casting Mine works out pretty well. It is a slow card. It is the kind of card that if your opponent's playing Slitherblade into Tawcrop Skirmisher, you might be in trouble, but it does work in this strategy.
And there's that Colossopede we were talking about.
Yeah, and Chris needs that. One thing I like about watching Chris draft, he just doesn't take more than a second when he's like, well, I'm taking this Colossopede.
And is that like, do you think there's like a checklist mentality where you're like, okay, I need 2 of these, 3 of these, 2 of these to make this deck work, and when you could check one of those boxes, you just snap that card off?
It certainly works similarly to that. I don't know if Chris has defined numbers, but
sure.
Knowing that, well, I have 2 cartouches of strength, I need some creatures that have actual stats so I can cast these cartouches for profit. And Colossopede fits into that. Oh, Vizier of Tumbling Sands is amazing.
It's not quite the Naga Vitalist, but it's close.
So what Vizier does is when you play it on 3, it does act like you said as a Naga Vitalist. It ramps you into things like Colossopede. But when you draw it later, you can just use it to cycle, often ambushing one of your opponent's creatures, getting a 2-for-1. Overall, it's a flexible and powerful card.
At its best when it's untapping a Pitiless Vizier, but pretty good when it's untapping a Colossopede.
And even when it's in play, you can sit there and untap blockers too. Another good pickup.
Yeah, Labyrinth Guardian, card that's really I think gone up in value. You know, you looked at it originally, and you think about cards like Tar Pit Warrior. But it's the target of a spell, not the target of a spell or ability, and that's usually if your opponent's targeting your creature with a spell, they were dealing with it anyway.
For the most part, that is true. You end up. This is gonna trade 1-for-1. It's an irrelevant early play, and.
There's another Spring to Mind, which you may take. Oh, but you know what?
I like the Scattered Groves. It's less cost, and I think that Chris could go either way. He does have 2 3-drop accelerants between Vizier and the Spring to Mind, so now it looks like he's going to pick up a 3rd.
Yeah, he takes the 2nd Spring to Mind here.
Though he also might not be looking to splash at all, in which case the Scattered Groves would just be an off-color cycling land, which is still worth playing.
So really just kind of a hate drafty kind of pick here. Nothing for his deck. Takes out a Minotaur Sure Shot. Now, with 2 Spring to Minds, is there still a possibility of him? Oh, and you know what? He gets the land he wanted anyway. Scattered Groves comes all the way around the table.
Even if Chris doesn't like splashing in general, he's getting kind of backed into it just because he's got a lot of free ways to splash here with Scattered Groves, double Spring to Mind. He's going to end up a little more incentivized to do so.
There's Dissenter's Deliverance, a really nice, tool to have at your disposal. I guess there's no one drafting the Slitherblade deck today. And Chris, you see, could have taken that Hieroglyphic Illumination. He's like, you know what? I don't want to lose to this card.
Yeah, it's interesting. He has 1 copy of Hieroglyphic Illumination. It looks like he's just not interested in playing a 2nd.
Or not interested in getting beaten down by a Slitherblade. All right, so here we go. Let's take a look at his how he looks through 2 packs.
His pick 1 was disappointing. Initiate's Companion, really not a card you want to first pick or 4th pick. But picking up Angler Drake, Cartouche of Strength, Colossopede, and a couple ramp spells, plus Labyrinth Guardian. Like this is a solid blue-green deck. It's got relevant early plays, Labyrinth Guardian and Seeker of Insight and Initiate's Companion. It's got multiple ramp spells on 3. It's actually got 4 ramp spells on 3, Weaver, Vizier, and the 2 Spring to Minds. And then for larger payoffs, it's got Pull from Tomorrow and Colossopede. Though Chris could use another couple big creatures.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like if you're in this position and you're about to open pack 3, what's your checklist? Like what are the 2 cards you want to see over the next couple picks?
Chris would like to pick up another Colossopede, maybe something like Greater Sandworm, but just cards that reward you for ramping your mana. And then, other than that, just trying to fill out his deck with good interactive cards. Like right now, he's got the 2 Cartouches of Strength, but if he doesn't splash, Prepare to Fight, he doesn't have a whole lot of ways to interact with the opponent.
What's the upper number of Cartouche of Strengths you would be willing to play in a deck like this?
Probably play like 4 or so.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on what your curve looks like and how big your creatures are. But the card is powerful. It's a removal spell that doesn't work if you don't have a creature or your creature isn't the right size, which is unfortunate. But when it does work, it gives you a lasting advantage as well as killing something.
All right, here we go. Pack 3. Chris has maneuvered himself into blue-green. Has the ability, I mean, if he opens something crazy, to still take it and possibly splash it. But, you know, maybe just a Colosipede here is what he's looking for. Oh,
or a
how
Glyph
about a
Keeper.
Glyph Keeper?
And that's going to be a great pickup. Chris,
He didn't even look.
Yeah.
He didn't actually even get all the way to the back of the pack. He's like, he started scanning, and he's like, oh, I'm taking Glyph Keeper.
yeah, so this is a great way to finish games. A perfect card that fits into a 3-drop ramp into a turn 4 Glyph Keeper. One thing you want to note is it doesn't have hexproof. It has this weird pseudo hexproof. If you target it, it actually counters yours as well. So Chris can't just put Cartouche of Strength on his Glyph Keeper.
Right. So he needs to maybe go to untap it with his Vizier, counter that, and then he could Cartouche of Strength it.
An elaborate plan, but one that could work.
All right. So great first pick here in pack 3 for Chris Fennell. Sees a Floodwaters that he's potentially interested in. A 3rd Spring to Mind. Can't imagine that's where he wants to go.
No, this is a disappointing pack. Floodwaters gives them a way to interact. It gives them, once you've ramped out, like if you go, Accelerant into 5-drop into Floodwaters, that's not terrible.
Sees Glory Bound Initiate. He takes note of that. No thought at any point about the Electrify is something that he could find a way to splash one mountain in the deck.
One reason not to splash Electrify is he already has decent white options for a splash if he wants to splash, and so picking up another splash potential is not really going to make it. But can't be happy about that second pick. It's a card that a lot of players are just not interested in playing, and Chris is second picking it here. Though I think it will be reasonable in his deck.
His body language, you see him just sort of like, yep, this is it, Naga Vitalist. And that's the card you were talking about earlier in pack 2. It's just a 2-drop mana accelerant that's going to really turn on his deck here.
Yeah, Naga Vitalist does exactly what his deck wants here. Kind of the goal of this ramp deck is it doesn't play very many low-drop creatures that get blanked in the late game. It wants its early plays to be ways to stop your opponent or ways to ramp your mana, and then you just play a bunch of heavy hitters, which Chris is still short on. He would not mind another.
He still wants that Sandworm or Colosipede here. There's another Cartouche of Strength, but does he have the creatures? There's a Ankramp Champion in there if he's dead set on being 3-color, and a pretty nice body for the price.
Yeah, it would help with his other 2 cartouches as well. But we'll see if Chris leans towards splashing. Otherwise, he likely will just take the Cartouche of Strength.
Yep, he is. He thought about it, but the fight card is really where he wants to be, and then let's see if he can find those missing fatties for his deck. Now, there's a Synchronized Strike. Probably not at its best in his deck.
Yeah, Synchronized Strike wants you to curve out a little bit more than Chris's deck is capable of doing. Heckma Sentinels offers a bit of power and toughness. Just a 2/3 is good to put Cartouche of Strength on because it becomes a 3/4 and picks off a lot of the cards they'll play early. Similarly, Ornery Kudu, which has some relevance because he can throw the counter, the -1/-1 counter on Naga Vitalist.
Naga Vitalist has probably had more -1/-1 counters than almost any creature in this format.
Yeah, it's got to carry a lot of weight for its teammates. And Ornery Kudu works quite well with cartouches as well.
There's another Prepare to Fight. It was his first pick of this draft, getting it like 6th or 7th pick here in pack 3.
Well, Chris is almost assuredly splashing white if he's just slamming that second Prepare to Fight. Also, they're just a very powerful card, and I think Chris is going to be able to make use of them fairly well. He's still about a Colosipede short, and maybe 2 or Colosipede plus Sandworm, something along those lines. Just to make sure he's got enough power and toughness, but he's got a lot of the ramp taken care of.
Couldn't quite see what that was from this angle. Winds of Rebuke. That's actually a really nice card for him, especially with a handful of cards that have Aftermath.
Yeah, it's got some solid applications here. He might be a little, again, short on creatures, so I'm not sure how many of the Winds / cartouches / he's got 4 different cartouches he's going to get to play. And now Chris is looking at the end here and getting to the point where he realizes he's not going to get one of these big green creatures.
Right. Did pass the sandworm in that direction early in pack 2. So, and we didn't see anything that he had a choice on. And so he starts thinking about white cards here. Oh, and I don't know, was that a Vizier of Deferment?
I think it's a Devoted Crop made it look like,
okay.
But not a card I think Chris is super likely to splash.
So Stinging Shot, yeah. Haze of Pollen.
Sting Shot is a solid anti-flyers card that, again, because it has cycling, you don't end up drawing. When you draw it and it's dead, it's not that big of a cost. A 3rd Spring to Mind is unlikely to be what Chris wants. So I think Chris is the biggest risk for his deck right now is that he's got just the 1 Colossopede, the Glyph Keeper. Doesn't have a whole lot more in terms of actual high end. Yeah. So he's got a lot of ramp, but not necessarily anywhere to go.
Let me ask you a question. Like, we just saw a Bloodlust Insider just going like 3rd or 4th to last here. Has the rose as the bloom come off the rose on the aggro decks at this top table?
It just might be how this draft particularly went, because I'm sure some of the players who got here I know drafted aggressive decks, and might just be that the packs were not conducive to them, or whoever had Bloodlust Insider, the Bloodlust Insider deck already had their 2 Bloodlust Insiders. You don't really want more than that.
I do not tell that to Jason Chung. So give me a grade on the deck here.
6 out of 10.
Okay. How about how he handled the seat?
I like how Chris drafted. He ended up not seeing any late big creatures, and it's possible that the 3rd Cartouche of Strength. I think he's going to end up wishing he took the Greater Sandworm over the 3rd Cartouche of Strength, given that he has 3 Cartouches and 2 Prepare to Fights, and just wants a creature with power and toughness.
Right. And what's your sense? I mean, I was trying to keep count, but it seems like it's like this is like an 11 or 12 creature deck, and a handful of them are not good fighters. They're bantamweights.
Yeah, he's really going to lean on drawing Ornery Kudu or Colossopede in order to really leverage those cartouches. So we'll see if Chris can manage to do that. It's just tricky because ramp decks need a combination of ramp, payoffs, and interaction, and Chris has a very good job of picking up ramp and interaction. His payoffs are a little light, though. Pull from Tomorrow and Angler Drake are both really powerful.
His sliding doors moment of this draft might have been the Warfire Javelineers in pack 1. And, we saw a really great red-blue deck come out of the first draft yesterday. I'm wondering if maybe there's another deck like that lurking at the table.
At the end of the day, I don't think Chris is going to regret that too much, because red just didn't seem open. I think red was not actually open, but it would have been interesting to see where he ended up.
Yeah, well, that was fun. We have another draft coming up real soon. We're going to send it back and be back with more Magic as soon as possible.
Yesterday, Chris Fennell was utterly rampant. He went 8-0. This morning, his deck looks like it's going to be utterly rampant, because how fast is he going to get to 6 mana in the blink of an Naga Vitalist and a Weaver of Currents? That just seems super interesting, that deck. All right, so that's Chris Fennell. Incidentally, in Duke and I will be walking through the green-blue draft archetype blueprint for you later on this morning. So if you're wondering how to draft green-blue, having just watched Chris Fennell, we'll take you through some of the core ingredients in that particular deck in a little bit. But right now, it's time for more pick-by-pick action. Well, Pierre Dajon was finalist in 2013 at Pro Tour Theros. He made his second Pro Tour top 8 this season at Pro Tour Kaladesh, and at 8-0, the other 8-0 player along with Chris Fennell, he's well positioned to make it a 3rd and 2 in the last 3 events. But to do that, he'll need a weapon, and for that, he needs a draft deck. Let's see every pick of every pack of Pierre Dajon.